How's it going, folks? How we doing, everybody? It's this is locally sourced. Sorry, got some new equipment here today. Just getting used to it a little bit. Um, and yeah, so gonna go over some local news. Gonna go over some state news. It's Thursday, the 23rd of April. Hope everybody's having a good day, good week so far, as best you can, anyways. I know that this is not the easiest time for everybody. Definitely been speaking to some folks that are, you know, getting through it, but also really missing some of the normal nice parts of life, which is really understandable. Um, I think certain people are definitely much better prepared to deal with this type of a situation than others, and that's just yeah. I mean, it's unfortunate. It's also part of the deal. So, at any rate, some good news. The library will be breaking ground on June 1st here in Peterborough. So that's actually just something positive. And I was gonna take a second and just kind of read over the weekly dispatch, because that tends to be, you know, good helpful stuff that's not necessarily gloom and doom related. So that's always nice. Let's see here. They've got this is from I'll put it up on the screen here. We've got this is from the 21st. Um so Main Street Bridge is going to be fully closed as of next week. In the meantime, still open to one-way traffic. South Sidewalk Bridge remain open until the pedestrian bridge is completed, so that you can still walk over it. And right now, if you drive, for anybody that hasn't been going out or driving around, just so you're not shocked the next time you get out, they have completely expanded 202 down on like from Granite Street to Concord Street, and there's sidewalk is on the right now, which is cool. That's good. I think that makes a lot more sense and is a lot less shady, although you don't have that sweet view of the town as much so, but it's safer, and I think that's important. Not that I don't wish that we could have a completely walkable community and not really need cars much at all, but that's how that is. um this one's pretty important. All dogs need to be licensed by April 30th. So that's kind of creeping up. That's like, that's a week away. So everybody want to make sure that you get in. You can do it online. They have a link right here. So that's kind of nice. And this is all just, if you go to the town website, the dispatch is right up at the top. So townofpeterborough.com. Yep. It's, as we move on, everybody's kind of maintaining guidelines, the social distancing guidelines, as far as using public spaces, and that's going to go along with a lot of the state stuff that I'll sort of get to in a bit. We're not quite there yet, so it's it's you know, I was just talking about this, how it's everything is intertwined. All the issues are intertwined. So it's really hard to talk about just, a state issue when you're talking about a local issue, or just talk about a local issue when you're trying to talk about a state issue, because they rely on each other too much. It's one thing to get up in arms about national politics, but there's distance to that. But here it's or not, and not even politics, just like getting stuff done. Like, I feel like there's always a distinction to be made about, like, political action is like, it's all of this kind of like kabuki theater type stuff. and there's really the functional aspect of just you got to make sure people have services, and that people are safe. So that's just a balancing act. Um, the library has they for anybody, I mentioned that they will be breaking ground on the first. That was announced during the library home companion stream that they did, which I highly for local folks, I highly recommend it. It's a good time, and there's a lot of nice local people, local faces, and folks that come in and do some cool stuff. So it's fun, and it's always nice to see stuff like that. And they did a good job producing it, honestly. For the first crack at it, it was I thought they did a really nice job arranging everything with the intercast. So yeah, I would recommend the Library Home Companion. But they're also doing live streams on how to fix books and stuff like that. So you can go and check out their Facebook page. Everybody's doing a lot of this on Facebook. I am wary about it. Obviously, I'm here doing this stream on YouTube because I don't trust Facebook's streaming, and I don't trust their data, and I don't trust Mark Zuckerberg. Yeah, not to sound too off the wall about it, but I'm not interested in giving that guy my video data. Not that Google's a whole lot better, I guess, but Google already has a lot of my information anyways, and I think that's something I personally would have to go all the way back to like 2007, 2008 to untie that knot, and that's just not going to happen, man. So, but with Facebook, I have there's a lot more limitations that one can have on restricting how much we give those goobers. So at any rate, that's why I don't do streams on Facebook as much personally. I did one of the show on there, and it did well, but it wasn't enough for me to feel like it was worth continuing. But at any rate, for stuff like Library Home Companion, it's actually a really good deal because there's not, that's it works, and it makes sure that it gets out to the right folks, and everybody can see it, and they get the notifications. Because for anybody that doesn't know, Facebook prefers their own native content. So if you like anything that you upload there, they'll prefer over any link that you share. And then obviously there's a hierarchy within the links as well to know what that certain links will get more will be considered more valid than others, and depending on what's in what the contents of the link are. I'm getting off base here. We're way off base. Yikes. So at any rate, there are a lot of details here specifically about Little League stuff. I personally don't have kids, but if you have kids and you want to learn about what the rec center is doing to deal with this whole situation, I highly recommend checking up on this. And, since I don't have kids, frankly, what I'm trying to do is speak to parents and hopefully just get people on to tell their story instead, because I don't want to relay information that I don't experience. That's not good, and that's not helpful. I don't want to sit here and pontificate on what other people are going through. I don't know what that experience is. It's a huge drag, and I wish there are many ways in which I wish I could put myself in those shoes. Knowing that it's far more difficult in my situation, simply so that I can understand it better, so that we can all try and help each other out as best possible. At any rate, I did want to do some follow-up on unemployment stuff that I had been discussing in the last couple streams, because this stuff is really relevant. So last week, Chris Sununu had essentially said that he was calling in the National Guard to help answer phones and help respond to people, which is cool. And what I thought at the time was, I was like, well, okay, but that's people answering phones. It's not necessarily people processing claims. So what's going on with that? Now, when I spoke with them on Monday, right, they and let me pull this up, because this was sort of like, I'll pull the tweet that I had posted up. So here we go. This is the content. So here's the original tweet. It's bringing in the National Guard, and this was the data from last week's episode. So if you want to go back and check that out, this does get discussed a bit more. All these details right here. But it wasn't clear on the phone with NHES who was, or not who, but how many people were actually processing the claims. And furthermore, they didn't know, the person that I was talking to didn't know whether or not or anything about really how they were going about processing those claims. So everybody's individual claim is very unique, and there's a very specific gateway that you have to go through in order to get onto and I guess I'm saying this for anybody that doesn't know, because if you've had to deal with filing unemployment in the past few weeks, you or ever really, you do understand exactly what I'm talking about here. That there's this sort of multiple window login process that's buried behind a very weird. It's like it's hard to get the link, and it's almost kind of like you got to have it in your history in order to find it, or it can be difficult to reach. Well, I mean, I say that I can get lazy about trying to dig up links, but it's, and actually, for the sake of argument, let's pull up the NHES website right now and just go for it. So, alrighty. So this is the NHES website right now. They have these they have these big buttons, but frankly, I mean, for anybody that's looking, I mean, this is a pretty old looking site. And there's absolutely, I mean, anybody knows that it isn't actually that hard to improve the quality of your website beyond, like these, look at these buttons. These are crazy. So at any rate, it's relatively clean, but for, it, in a 2007 way. So what, at any rate, this is, this is the window that you get to. This is sort of where it all starts for anybody that hasn't gone through this before. It can be a little confusing at first, mainly because it's just the design of that original, and frankly, all of these pages. This is not a very okay. Speaking from a graphic design standpoint or from a web design standpoint, this is a very poorly designed web page. It doesn't help you to really, it doesn't track your eye around or help you focus on exactly what you might need. It doesn't direct the people who are most likely to be visiting this page for certain things to different and that's just kind of a thing about government websites. That's just a thing that happens, that I've just seen and dealt with over my life and whatever. Anybody that's been through this probably knows, or has had to deal with any kind of online form filling like this. You know, not everybody's got like, an accountant or or tax agent or whatever to do this kind of stuff for you. So not everyone knows, and obviously some people just never have to deal with the struggle of going into file for unemployment. So, anyways, this is not a great website, just layout wise. And that can make it harder, intimidating for folks, which is it could well also be by design that they want it to be kind of unwieldy, so that folks who don't need it don't try and go for it. I don't know. That's also a tactic that's been known to be used by um different private and public entities, really. Um, so once you're here, you have to go through a process of creating an account or logging in, and then once you do that, you'll get to your main web page where you have your main login. So you've got your notices up. They tell you what file for additional benefits, respond to any notices that you've got, just like look at correspondence, help do work search, like all the tools are right there, and that part is actually a bit better designed. Once you're really in, that web page is a good bit more user friendly, which is cool. But again, not the best, and also just still kind of intimidating for folks who really are, they this whole process is really intimidating and sketchy and just not fun for anyone. And I don't know. I mean, say what you will. I think there are a lot of people that would say that um it's not the government's responsibility to help folks like this. And so it makes sense to try and ward people away from it as much as possible, but I just don't like I don't know. I don't personally view things that way. For me, I think what I guess it all depends on what role you believe you want government to be playing in the whole scheme of things. And I don't want, what I'm like what I want. Like a lot of people talk about, well, they want it's the government's responsibility to protect me from other people. And I generally I agree with that. I think the meaning of protect me from other people has changed from what it meant like 400, 200, 125 years ago from now. Like that's not always been the same consistent thing. And I think like when I think about what do I want, if the government is an entity of people protecting people from other people, right? Like and controlling things so that the people that make the government happen, right? Because the government is just an extension of the people. It's like a more concise body that is delegated power, at least in a democracy, by the people. So therefore, the government is the people, right? They are protecting you from in a sense yourself, but more broadly everybody else. Like, they're protecting everybody from everybody. It's not it's not about a subjective view of it. It's easy to think about it like that, but it's far more of a dynamic problem than simply protect me, this one individual, from everybody else. And when I think about what protections somebody would need in the year 2020, I think from other people, what we need is we need to make sure that we don't have to sweat having enough money to pay our rent. We need to make sure that we're protected from predatory lending practices and, a profit-based housing system and a profit-based medical insurance system. Like, all those things are things that we really need to protect people from, which is why you see a flood of social programs just getting juiced like crazy, even under the most what would be considered the most conservative national government currently. We don't necessarily have that here in the state. We have Democratic control of the House and the Senate, but basically, even in this incredibly conservative climate, we're seeing a lot of social programs get bumped, and that's something to recognize. And I think that's like that. That's why I personally would like to see websites like that and tools like that, where once you're even onto your splash screen, you got to open up anything you want to do opens up another window. Now, it might have to do with security. It might have to do with, I genuinely do not know what the reason for that second window is. I wish I did. Um, but at the end of the day, I think it's okay. Occam's Razor, they are underfunded. Like, that's just the fact of the matter. NHES is underfunded. Most government entities in New Hampshire are underfunded because that's what we do here. So likely nobody has the time or the energy or the money to hire somebody to come in and fix their website. And that's why this is happening, and nobody thought that would be like, that's maybe not the first thing that anybody thinks of when they think, oh geez, we need to really prepare for a deluge of unemployment claims. Like, maybe that's not the first thing that a career bureaucrat thinks of. Oh geez, we need to make sure that the website graphics are updated so that people can follow it better. I don't think that's at the top of the list. It might be something that seems like a no-brainer, especially to a lot of people in the community that I'm from, where where we're all very, like, a lot of us for the most part are very aesthetically oriented. So that's, like, for us, one of the first things that jumps out is like, God, this is an awful looking website. But that's not necessarily what everybody else's experience is. So at any rate, I know that it's been really tough for people. They're not necessarily always like, and everybody's going through this at the same time for the first time, and a lot of it is unemployment, which unemployment, a lot of it's all unemployment. A lot of it is self-employed folks trying to file a claim, which is something that they've never done before. Like, this is uncharted territory for the unemployment offices. Like, they've never had to deal with this kind of stuff before. And so, actually, and this is probably the point at which I can start popping over to some of the video, because I did sort of I had I do have a list of sort of, and the thing about a lot of the issues that I was going to talk about today, um, is he actually Sununu was on MUR yesterday answering a bunch of questions, and I love these videos. They're really fun to watch because it's just like they're a little shorter, so it's, and it's just him answering questions from the public, which is always a good time. So at any rate, we'll hop into this one now. In this first clip that I wanted to show, he covers three different topics primarily. This is he's covering let's see, I believe this is the medical stipend, hazard pay, and general testing. Let's see if this is, I think this is the correct clip, so I'll hop over that. This guy. Wow. Okay, yeah. This one is crucial. Still not answering the question. Oh my god, that's some Bobby Newport stuff right there. Like, okay, let me be clear. I mean, I don't even have to be clear. MUR is being clear right now with the question under, like directly underneath his face. It's right there, and it says, "Why aren't people getting a hazard pay? Hazard pay for essential workers." So he still hasn't answered the question yet, and he's just talking about lines of tape on the floor of supermarkets. What is he talking about? Like, deeply and honestly, what the heck is he talking about? There it is. Right. So, okay, basically what he just said there, for anybody that didn't catch it, is we know you're important, but not important enough yet for us to figure out what to do about it. That is honestly like, and I know that if I were to say that to Chris Sununu, right, he would probably be like, "No, that's not what I mean. That's not at all what I mean."
we just don't have the resources yet, and we need to make sure that we allocate it to the folks who need it the most, which are first responders. And okay, I grasp this concept. Absolutely. I completely grasp this concept. But it also clearly ignores the base point that the caller is making, that those supermarket workers, all these other essential workers, are doing work that is just as valuable. It's equally important as people who are working in the hospitals. This guy, okay, he just came out on top in a lawsuit that lets him alone control like all the federal money. It's what is it? I think it's like 1.3 billion, $1.25 billion. Here it is. Without legislative review or approval. He can just willingly spend this money, folks. Like and a judge literally, like, the Democrats tried to sue him over this and say, "No, we want oversight. Like, we just want someone to come in and make sure that this spending makes sense." Like, people who bipartisan fiscally responsible budget handling, just to make sure that we're not like pulling a Steve Mnuchin and just bailing out all the corporate entities in the state, right? And he's up here talking about how he doesn't know and needs to wait for federal guidance. Okay? And what this person is doing, what this person is saying when they're asking this question is that, they're looking to him for independent leadership, right? Like, this is about, frankly, this is about liberty of New Hampshire. Right? If he wants to do his whole, like, I'm going to be the guy with all the control of all the money, right? If he wants to be that dude, then why is he now suddenly feeling like he needs to follow a federal regulation, right? If he knows so well, right? If he knows better than the people in his own state, then what, like, he doesn't, he's gonna like fall in line for that national section. And it's not like, it's not like they're scientists, these are economists, right? They're just talking, this is all money, right? This doesn't have to do with it seems like it has to do with helping people, but frankly right now it doesn't. It's probably a political move. He's probably very worried about, like, granted, he does have full control over this 1.25 billion, but he's probably also somewhat nervous that everybody's going to flip out if he does something wonky with the money, which, so my guess is that there's probably a certain amount of like, all right, like, what can I finagle? And I don't necessarily think it's malicious in nature. I think it's just kind of like he probably can't help himself. It's the guy who asked other ski areas to close while keeping Waterville Valley open. Shout out to his Ski New Hampshire jacket. Literally every single time he does these, he's wearing that stupid fleece. And I'm so tired of his product placement. My Lord, I am over it. I am so beyond over it. Okay, so like, right. Hazard pay for supermarket workers. Come on. This is a no-brainer. This is absolutely a no-brainer. You know what's even worse is that a lot of those workers, there's a decent amount of them that are like high school students that are just not like they are not going to school, but they are going to their work and being like it's the same amount of risk essentially, but it's essential work. And they now have to sweat having to bring that home to, parents, grandparents that could be higher risk. We're taking advantage of younger labor that, it just doesn't, I don't know. To me, that really, really seems like cold comfort, if any at all, in the face of this. And it's a real dodge. So it's just, to me, that one is really just it's pretty disappointing. So we'll continue here. Okay, so look, I mean, he's essentially saying, he's talking about like all of the reasons why the testing hasn't begun, but he's not at all talking about like, when is it going to start? What's your plan to roll it out? Where are we going to see these facilities? I hear a lot of emphasis on private businesses that are going to, or like private testing, private yada yada yada. It's, can we stop talking about it in the context of economics and talk about it in the context of just making sure that people get the tests? Like, what that? Why is this hard? I'm so confused as to what's so challenging about this. Like, it's not. It's like, we know that you need swabs, and we know that you need, different components of it. We're aware. This is not news to us at this point. So you're regurgitating the same points that you told us a week or two ago. Okay? What we want to know is, what is your plan to roll out testing once you have enough swabs? Okay? Don't just tell us that Dartmouth is going to figure it out or Catholic Medical Center is going to figure it out. Like, I don't want to hear that. Okay? Like, you're out here, you're supposed to be bringing us the word. Like, that's why you're on this show right now. So tell us what they're telling you. Are they going to set up how many towns in between? How many testing sites per county? What are we talking about here? Cuz this is like, are you, is it going to be based in hospitals? Are you going to try and work out something with the towns where they have a like drive up testing services in, in every town. Like, what, how is this going to happen? Because as I sit here right now, I realize that hearing that response, I still have no idea how much closer I am personally, right? Or say my mom, or I mean, my granted, my dad doesn't live in the state anymore, but my parents or other people's parents, like, how are they going to get that testing? I know a number of people that are high risk, and I don't know. You really got to, like, uh, it's really unfortunate. No, sorry, folks. What I'm being told right now, that apparently there's no audio on the Sununu videos, which is unfortunate. I'm gonna have to check out why that's happening. I'm really not. I'm not sure what. I'm not sure what the deal is there. Give me a moment, folks. If I'm just having some technical difficulties here, so I want to figure out why the heck I'm not getting what I need out of this. Maybe give me one moment. I'll be back in a moment. I'm just gonna do some more audio testing here, and we'll see if we can get this stuff to work, because it is, the audio matters here. That's like, I can show video, but it doesn't mean squat if I can't play you guys audio. So give me a second, I'll figure this out. All right, be back.
Okay, folks. Sorry about that. This is now fixed. I promise I've fixed this. This will probably cause the stream to run long, but I'm gonna actually bounce back and I'm gonna show the content that I missed playing, because frankly it's like it matters what he says, and I don't want anybody to be missing out on any of this stuff. So let's hop back, okay, to the hazard pay question, because I think that one was particularly relevant to a lot of folks. I mean, like, look, that's, as I was saying, you know, there's kids and families that really need that money, and it's important that everybody hear what he has to say about that. So let's we'll get into this.
At our DMV, we have folks at the grocery stores, we have folks in a lot of different areas of our state that are doing kind of that one-on-one interaction with folks, and we know that there is a risk there. There's a risk of COVID and infection. I know a lot of the grocery stores, and I've spoken with those that manage those chains. They've put up everything from Sneed cigars to different, managing the number of folks that are in a store, managing, how we walk up and down the aisles. And by the way, would y'all please follow the arrows? Look down and follow the arrows. That's driving me a little crazy. I love that they did that. Dude, so the stores, I think, are trying to take very proactive measures in setting the tone for how to be protective of their workers and the public. We have a lot of PPE coming into the state, and there will be some grocery stores that have asked, and we can now supply more masks and gloves and things of that nature into the private sector, especially those that are dealing with one-on-one. So when it comes to pay, those are private businesses, and right now where we're looking to stipend pay is things like long-term care facilities that maybe just deal with Medicaid on the front lines. They typically don't get paid quite as much, that are taking care of loved ones or the elderly. But hopefully we'll be able to expand those programs. We'll know a little more when the guidance document from the federal government comes, hopefully later this week, that will explain exactly how we can spend this $1+ billion for relief and recovery efforts. And this
is ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. Okay, this is what I'm talking about. Like, it's like he is making that distinction himself. Like, he's like that's not like what people are trying to say by asking this question is like, hey, you do realize that there's virtually no difference between somebody who's like, cashing out your groceries and somebody who's making sure that your respirator functions, in a sense, right? And what's funny to me is that so like I've been trying to track, like, more so at least, like, actively I'm trying to track more like right voices, like libertarian right voices in the state, locally, yada yada. And they'll make the argument that like every business is essential. There's no such thing as a non-essential business. So I okay, put it where your mouth is then. Like, recognize that, like, don't, like, this is exactly the same thing that like even people in his own party will criticize him on. And it's like, no, to be fair, everybody, please keep in mind that he's got like an 82% approval rating on dealing with this. Like, everybody really likes this guy. Okay. Like, they really like him and they like how he's dealing with it. They feel like he's done a good job. And I mean, and I'm talking about, like, even I don't think he's done a terrible job handling this. Like, it could have been a lot worse. Now, as he points out in a different video, that this is like the epicenter of, like the Northeast region of the United States is like the global hotspot because of New York City and Boston. And like, it's really heavily concentrated right there, and we're okay. But still, it's like, I'll continue with this.
Always a possibility that may allow for such funds to be released into the private sector. There's a real possibility there.
Sue asks, when will general public COVID-19 testing begin?
When will general? So a couple things. If you're part of the general public and you want a test, go to your provider. If you have symptoms, your provider should be definitely has the ability to authorize a test. But right now it's your provider. We're constantly trying to loosen up the restrictions around the provider. So if you are symptomatic of an old...
Okay, this right here, folks, this is like classic New Hampshire buck passing from the government to private business, where private business doesn't care because they're about profit, not people. So things to keep in mind all the time, that an insurance company does not care about your life. They care about your money.
they don't, the only reason they care about you having good health is so that they don't have to pay a bill and they just get to keep your premium that you pay. So because there's like, it's not like there's any refund built into that. So he is literally just being like, I don't know, and passing it off to a much more predatory entity that doesn't care about us as much, even though that's technically their business. But again, there's no such thing as like business of helping people. There's business of making money while trying to help people. And in that instance, you're still putting making money over helping people. It's just how that works. Sorry to anybody that feels saddened by that, but it's just true. So, like, I just, like, this is a really, really, like, tropey thing to do, and it bothers me that more people don't just, like, get, like, pissed at this response right away, because, you know, like, every argument that comes after this is secondary to this problematic talking point of like, well, it's up to your provider, your private provider to like, no. I mean, we have built a system where that is the case, but what we are learning is that it doesn't function well for us. Like we have very, very quickly learned that as we are the worst country in the world right now, right? Like, so, and it's no mystery that our healthcare system was broken. The way that we do health insurance has been broken from the start. That's not like just about everybody knows that. Some people care more than others. Some people are in denial more than others, but ultimately, you know, it's a type of enslavement wrapped in a freedom. And like that's the thing that bothers me the most about any of this stuff, right? Is that it's like and just arguments surrounding this in general is it's like, you know, every time that I hear somebody argue about, well, I want my freedom to do this, I keep trying to think about like, well, okay, but how does that freedom actually restrain you or shackle you, right? What are the, like, assuming everything is neither negative nor positive, just things in the world that happen, actions, like assuming there's no such thing as an inherently negative or like evil or good chaotic action, that just they simply are neutral, right? If that's the case, then like so it's like to me this I'm sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here because it's like sometimes I try to deal with these more complex issues and I just like it's annoying to have to grapple with this concept sometimes because even I haven't fully like landed on how I totally feel about it at all times with every issue, like what's a freedom versus what holds us captive, you know, and where is that line. But I think we view a lot of this like the free quote unquote free market things as, I mean, like, you know, I think it's misleading that the word free is in that, you know, that it's that because it connects itself to freedom. And I think, you know, Bernie supporters will obviously be and people that know FDR and all that stuff, and like that, you just sort of like a lot of the vibe that comes off of a lot of democratic socialists and stuff like that is I want the freedom from want and the freedom from need, and I want to be free of having to worry about healthcare, frankly. And by forcing everything into commodities like that, and doing doing testing on a free market basis, something like this, like what we're talking about here, and relying on a private sector or a free market to resolve the problem, is it's not about helping people. Like, it's like we've proven over and over again that it doesn't, like, there will always, like, a capitalist system requires there to be a loser, right? Like, somebody has to lose in order for somebody to win. You cannot have one without the other. The second you decide to turn it into that zero-sum game, like, it will always be a zero-sum game, and there's no way to suggest that it's not, okay? And the only way to prevent that from being a zero-sum game is to say, no, we're not going to play that issue like in that game scenario. We're going to change the type of game that we play when we're discussing dealing with that, okay? And he's not, it's like, it's interesting because I feel like Sununu is probably walking a very, very fine line. And I've heard this, that like, if you listen to more like the further right-wing libertarian and libertarian perspectives that I've heard, generally view this guy like they do Jeb Bush, or maybe closer to W because he's more likable. But they themselves view the Sununu family as like the New Hampshire Bushes. Like, they're institutional. And I think the libertarians really don't like that either. And they wanted Edelblut, man. They wanted him. The education commissioner. They wanted him to be governor. He much more represents a lot of their a lot of that ethos. And so they've got, they have their own set of complaints for Sununu as well. So then, and they attack him from the right on issues, or they try to pull him further right all the time, and they're good at it too. So that's something to keep in mind, that this is always like, there is a very well-spoken and relatively, congenial set of people that, he'll listen to, and he can absolutely get dragged further right on. But I mean, so it's always important to keep that stuff in context when thinking about what he's going to do to help implement the sweeping government moves that are required to really contain the damage of this pandemic on the state, and make sure that people are like, and I mean that in a health context. I don't mean that in an economic context. It's like this, we can't be tying these two issues together like this. You gotta, one's got to be more important than the other. So, wow, really went in on that one. Let's do the other one. Let's check this one out. So I wanted to we want to go over this. This is okay, yeah. So this one is actually probably even more relevant for us. This is unemployment, back pay, reopening.
We've been receiving a lot of questions related to COVID-19 as things constantly change both globally and here in New Hampshire.
So we asked you to send in your questions for Governor Chris Sununu. He's joining us live on set.
That's right, and as you can see, we're practicing social distancing, and so is the governor. So I will start with the first questions. Now, we received a lot of unemployment questions, like this one right here from
Waving like a
John,
goober.
who says, I have an open unemployment claim dating back to March and haven't received any payments. I've called and spoken to representatives every week, and no one can tell me why my claim is taking so long to process.
Yay. Thank you, MUR, for putting this up, because I swear I have been out here doing this for I don't know like how many of my live streams that I've been shouting about this issue, but I'm really glad that they're actually having, taking somebody's comment and putting it up here. The issue being there's no follow-up. There's literally no follow-up in these interview segments that they do, and it really doesn't help anybody that they just let him say whatever he's going to say and then continue. Anyways, sorry. Going.
So, we've been able to process over 95, I think close to 97% of the uninsured employment and claims that have come in. And I think as of today, over $150 million has gone out of the state since the beginning of March. On your case in particular, I know there's 3,000 or 4,000 claims of the 130 or 40 that are in there that require a little more. They're very technical, they're very different, and so we're trying to put a lot of one-on-one effort on them. So I can't explain why yours in particular, unfortunately, hasn't been paid, but I know about 97% have. I heard a report that I think Florida's like 15% of their claims have been paid. So we're actually doing pretty well, relatively speaking, and those $600 checks are going out.
Okay, so actually, now, to follow up, for my own part, the unemployment benefits that I had been trying to get did indeed come through for myself. I would venture to guess that whatever I received was part of that 150 million that he said went out. And I would imagine, at this point, what I would say about it is because I've had my own personal, isolated experience with this. I've talked to other folks who are also dealing with similar problems. Some people didn't. Someone I spoke to was having a hard time getting clarity on what needed to get resolved, and was further obstructed by the amount of wait time and busy signal, or just just not being able to connect. That alone held off for multiple weeks, not understanding the process because of a lack of clarity around how the process works. That also contributed to the problem. So, I mean, I think, and then, and to make matters worse, in this instance, it was indeed a self-employment situation. So that's all very, as he says in that clip, it matters. The individual circumstances absolutely are super duper relevant to when they can pay you out, what they're able to do. So generally speaking, though, it sounds like they have finally come through. Now, they never really, the question that I always wanted to ask was, okay, but how many certifying officers did you have? And he's saying here that they've processed 97, 98% of claims or whatever, which is good. And I'm curious, did they manage, can we applaud the, what was it, 18 to 20 people that did that? Can we seriously consider those people heroes for managing to process tens of thousands of claims amongst each individual person, right? If I granted that it's not I'm sure there's a lot of information being taken in by people who are on the phones answering those phones, but at the same time, you got to have certifying officers that look over those claims and say, yeah, we're we're going to approve this, or no, we're not, or at the very least, just quick reviewing, that stuff is absolutely imperative to the process. And so I would be curious to find out just how many of those folks were on the clock working day in and day out to make sure that we all got the money that we needed and are still seeing it. I definitely can attest to the fact that the $600 bump from the federal is most certainly in there. So they did, they may have a problem with, like you might see part of your money come through at one point and then the rest come through a day or two later. It might be easier for them to process one claim and then bounce back and approve it all later once they've gotten through an initial process. There's a lot of nuance to it. So it's again, I'm not going to ask people to be patient. Don't be patient. Don't be patient at all. Keep hollering at them. Keep yelling at them. Something that I found out, they had supposedly the stimulus checks. I had heard at one point, and now I'll need to go back and verify where I heard it, and I don't have it up for myself right now, so I just can't do it. But I had been under the impression that, because I had heard some bit of news, and I could have sworn it came straight from Mnuchin himself, the Treasury Secretary of the dang country, that stimulus checks for people who were on Social Security, receiving Social Security benefits, would see their stimulus money in the next check that went out, right? Well, I guess that didn't happen. I spoke to both of my parents yesterday, who were both very, very frustrated that that had not been included in their monthly payment. And for my parents, their Social Security is very crucial to their earnings. It's really, 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 really important. So I can't, when you're planning on having that kind of money just be there, and then all of a sudden it's not, it's like, I mean, I don't know how many people are dealing with this right now. Millions of Americans are dealing with this right now. Many people in our community are dealing with this right now. I have friends right now that are dealing with this, beyond just my parents. This is a very, very common problem. I personally am very lucky, I feel, to have had whatever extent to which I needed to engage with their process, that I was able to get what I needed in as timely a manner as I could, given the circumstances. But the reality of it is that I have a unique and privileged experience on my own, and I'm trying to acknowledge and consider that as I talk to my other friends who have a much harder time reporting a consistent earning, right? If you're freelance, when they ask the question, well, what's the average amount of money you make in a week? Maybe it doesn't work like that. What if you work purely on contract? What if you're the type of worker that could make, $40,000 in 2 weeks and then be off for 8? Like, what if that's the type of thing that you do? What if that's how you earn your money? Because there are absolutely jobs just like that. And I don't think that, I think this is, what I hope is that this is a true wake up call to, institutionalists, regardless of whether or not it's public or private sector, to the reality of how this stuff needs to work. going down the line. I mean, like, this is outrageous, you know? We've been kind of operating on this, like, very archaic. Well, I say archaic. I feel like I use that word too much. I guess it's sort of antiquated. It's sort of vintage. It's like this, late 1900s vibe of how things ought to work, and like, this. I think the whole American dream thing really egged it on, and it's super duper warped our perspective of how things could work, and I think it probably clouded our judgment as far as what we could be doing with tools that we've developed in the years since. I think, for what it's worth, we've seen, I don't want to get too into education, because again, I feel like I need to talk to educators and I need to talk to parents before I can get to put any serious emphasis on that. But I think in a working context, I think the fact that so many people can very effectively continue to do their jobs without ever having to go into an office, or without ever having to fly across the country for a meeting or something like that. Like, there's so much that can be done without all this extra waste. And, and they're talking about, like, in Los Angeles, people can finally see the mountains from the city. Because the smog has cleared up enough, and people are, they're opening streets back up for walking stuff, but not cars. And now people are finding that, we don't really, actually, we're kind of doing fine without them, and it's a little bit nicer to not have cars around everywhere. So, and maybe that's a plague of its own, and it's not necessarily that we can, like, really, I don't think we can just stop doing that here in New Hampshire. I really don't think that's something that we can just, like, I don't think we just hop into that. But and that's because of our sprawl. But it's like, there are all these things that have shown us just how little we all need to be really out and doing a ton of this extra stuff. It's not important, right? Like, there's all this extra that's done not for need, but just simply because, like, that's the way we think we're supposed to do it. And a lot of that is probably attached to just how everybody did it before. And no one thought, geez, maybe we should completely revamp this entire dynamic. And it's not until something comes along and forces you to have to change that you realize, oh, maybe we should have just done that the whole time. So there, and it's like, and I think that's, I think COVID-19 is probably waking a lot of people up to certain policies and things that, like programs that we would need locally, at the state level, at the national level. Now that this is going on, we're really seeing, like, what type of cohesion we need to have in our communities, what we were lacking, all that stuff. It's coming to the fore, and this is an opportunity that we have to seize on it. So I don't, as concerned as I am about folks, like their mental health, I'm concerned about what impact this is going to have on younger children that don't have necessarily the full social needs or the social skills developed to they don't necessarily have the social skills to do what to understand the current situation. And that's definitely something to worry about. But I think there are absolutely takeaways that we can have from this that that are positive, that can help us understand exactly what type of long-term change we need to implement in our communities in order to adapt adequately and have a better quality of life, frankly. I think there are absolutely parts of this that can show folks just how much better our lives can be and how much more we can focus on the home and, and our personal lives. And I think I think it's making people take a much harder look at what they like and they don't like about the way they live. I myself have gone through a lot of introspection about, like, what do I like about the way that I live? What do I not like about the way that I live, based off of just trying to live through this experience. I know a lot of people that are going through this, and I think that's super, super important to be thinking about. I think we should be talking about it more. Don't be afraid of it. It's okay. Let's use it as a moment to sort of put down emotional guards surrounding how we feel about issues and say, well, wait a minute, what's helping right now, honestly? Have that level of consideration. So at any rate, I know I've been really trying to not just get deep into philosophy stuff, but I think that's probably the way that I think about things, and I'm having a hard time restricting myself and on some of these streams where it's just me and I don't have guests lined up yet. It's I gotta check myself. But at any rate, I want to switch to something that's like a little bit funnier, maybe. So okay, I had talked about this last week, but there was the Reopen New Hampshire rally that happened last Saturday at the Capitol building, and I wanted to just sort of follow up on that. Here we go. I'll put up this tweet from union leader. So here we go. So okay, so they got some photos here. Now, in this tweet, they say that they have 3,800 signatures. That is like 0.003% of the state population. Just so that we're clear about how many signatures and what fraction of the state that it, like. Great, guys. Nice. So I got some fun photos here. It's pretty over the top. I think a lot of this stuff does definitely speak for itself. But kiss my constitution back here. It's pretty classic. But I love that you do see some people wearing masks. I love the people wearing masks. And here, okay, so this was this one. I love the, riot gear and all this. So what's funny, what's really, really great about this, right, is that for anybody that's been paying attention to the science, okay, masks don't protect you from anyone else. Literally does nothing to protect you from other people. What it does is it provides a certain measure of protection for other people from you. So the act of wearing a mask, right, is a polite action. Okay? That is the right thing to do. You are being conscientious. You are not helping yourself by wearing a mask. No one's helping themselves by wearing a mask. You might feel like you're protected. You're not. You're not doing, like, as far as a virus is concerned, and I'll see if I can pull up a size comparison, because it's really, like, it's important to understand that, like, so, let's see here. Okay. Sorry, I know that I'm just kind of, like, hanging out here for a second. It's always a bummer when I have to do this, like, okay, yeah, here we go. Alrighty. Well, so here we go. I just so we're clear about, like, why wearing a mask doesn't actually help you at all, right? Here's a size comparison video, all right, of viruses. So now, COVID is probably somewhere around the influenza size virus. Like, how would a virus this small be stopped really in any capacity by a mask that has holes that could allow something like this through? Just and when I say holes, I just mean, like, distance between woven fibers, right? Like, it's I'm trying to think of, like, a bigger example. Um okay, I have an idea, right? Like, how many movie Independence Day, okay? It's very, like, millennial of me to, like, bring this up. This is, like, one of my childhood favorite movies, Independence Day. Totally ridiculous. Jeff Goldblum, Bill Pullman, and Will Smith. Great flick. Great flick. Love it. Towards the end, when they're flying into the alien spaceship, there's, like, this whole sequence that goes on, where um basically they're like invading the alien spaceship. Yeah. So, like, here's this scene, right? And it's like, this is the size comparison, right? Here's your mask, here's this virus. Okay? It's not helping you. It's just not helping you. So, now that I've gone on this absurd tangent about, like, about Independence Day and how, like, I'm sorry I make these dumb analogies, right? But, like, yeah, like, this is, like, my mental image was this, like, this idea of, you got little little fibers like this, and the virus is just floating right on through. So, and that even applies to stuff like this. Okay, it's not going to help you, right? Like, it's not going to make any lick difference. So these guys are being polite by wearing masks. They're helping you, but they're protecting themselves with guns, so they're going to shoot the person with the virus. So they're trying to protect you from them if they have the virus. But if you get too close to them, if they think you might have the virus, they might hurt you. So like it doesn't quite jive in the logic zone. At least for me. I don't get this. And what I do understand, these men are probably very angry. I don't know why. I don't know what caused them to be angry in the first place, but I'm sure that they very much so are. And this, for whatever reason, this is the way that they've decided they are going to effectively be able to voice their anger or their concern. But it doesn't seem to have taken a whole lot of application of basic logic to reach this conclusion, and at that, I feel like we can just have a good chuckle about it. So, so that's that. Let's see here. I feel like this is probably gone on plenty long today. We've had a good hour and a half long episode, and we'll probably just bounce back for next week. Hopefully, I'll have some more information that provide more clarity. I've definitely been talking to some folks about different types of programming and things like that we can get popping off. So I just, again, keep your eyes peeled, doing more work. We're now regular-ish, so definitely tune in on Thursdays at 11. I was basically doing like 11 to 12:30 today. You can follow us on Twitter, support us on Patreon, hit the subscribe button down in the lower right-hand corner, hit the bell for notifications, make sure you hit the like button, push us up, help us out with our, just getting visibility. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors if you think this is something to be into. And it's just, I've been having a lot of fun coming out and doing this kind of thing. I definitely want to try and get people more resources as I can, try and get more involved with some of the activist organizations, and just keep these updates coming. So cheers, everybody. It has been swell, and stay safe, stay healthy until next week, and we will catch you then. Take care.